Let's start off with the reading of the checklist. As chairman of the Sanborn Regional School Board Public Relations Subcommittee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to the executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access, possibly by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Sanborn Regional School Board Public Relations Subcommittee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the platform, and the public has access to listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 1-646-558-8656, meeting ID 910-1439-1854, or by clicking on the following website: www.youtube.com/SRSD MEETINGVIDEOS videos. Providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. We have previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephone. Instructions have been provided on the website at the Sanborn Regional School District at www.sau17.net. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-642-8541 or email helpdesk@sau17.net. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting will be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. Each member will state their presence. Please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Charlie, let's start with you.
I'm here by myself in my kitchen.
Tammy Mahoney, I'm in my house. I'm alone at the moment.
Tom?
Tom Ambrose, Superintendent. I'm in my home office.
Patty Haynes, I'm home in my office alone.
My name is Larry Heath. I'm in my office in my basement, and my wife is in the back of the room doing her stuff. So let's proceed on the agenda. The first item on the agenda is minutes for the 10/14/2020 meeting. Has everybody been able to read it? And do we have a motion to move on it?
Move to approve from the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been approved in second. Roll call vote. Charlie,
Aye.
Tammy,
Aye.
and Larry, aye. Motion carries. I guess at this point, Tom, will turn the meeting over to you.
Oh, thanks. So we had talked about two things that we wanted to review at this meeting, or one at the last meeting and one that I added. The first one is just having a conversation. Normally the ISA committee has a review of the data, the annual data that goes into the annual report in January, Phyllis compiles the annual report and does the data. And we had agreed as a team that this group would also have a conversation about the annual report. And part of what I was thinking is that the reason why I wanted to meet was I thought that Patty and I could create like it's such a unique year. We really need to have something in the annual report that addresses the COVID situation. Right. And I just didn't think that we'll draft everything, but we just wanted to talk to you and see if it would be okay if we draft it and send it to you for feedback. Might just be a 1-page or a 2-page simple document just saying, this has been an exceptionally unusual year. These are the things that have occurred. I think it should be memorialized in some manner in our annual report. On one level, to acknowledge the impact that it's had on our academics, but on another level to acknowledge the students and the children that have been impacted in such an unusual way, particularly our seniors. And just acknowledging them and that graduation was so unusual last year. It's part of, I really feel like the annual report is a part of our history as a community, and it stands as a document that it kind of speaks to what happened at school. And part of this will be in my superintendent's report, but I thought that we should have a little special memo. And I just wanted to know if you were all in agreement with that and if you'd be okay with us drafting it and sending it to you for feedback.
Charlie, Felix?
I'm okay with that.
Tammy?
Good with me.
Okay.
I think it's ideal, and I think you should also include the problems that happen with the teachers. All the, they've gone through hell too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Larry. It has been awful for our staff. And, when people say to me recently, they'll say the culture is not good right now. My response is, none of us are happy. This isn't good this is awful. The culture is not good for everybody. It's hard. It's scary. It's a lot of work, and we're all really tired, and we're all working nights and weekends, and we're doing everything that we can to help our kids get the best that they can get in this really difficult time. And our teachers have gone above and beyond. And Larry, thank you for saying that. That means a lot to the teachers and to me. And we'll make sure to really emphasize the hard work and efforts of our teachers in this document.
I think that's an ideal thing. Yes, and I approve it too.
Okay, great. So that was the big one. And what we'll do is we'll have it ready for you to review. And I think our next meeting falls right about when Phyllis needs to submit the information. So what we'll do is we'll have our next meeting, and we'll kind of finalize it at the next meeting in January, early January. So we'll have it ready for you. And same thing for just a preview. There'll be a document for ISA as well about the data and all that. And we'll talk about that next week. We'll just mention it in the litany of things that ICE is covering. So we'll at least get some kind of conversation about that next week. We might want to just add that as a small 5-minute agenda item. But it's up to you.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
up to you, Tammy. Yeah, that's a long agenda next week. So
I have no problem with long agendas. The only problem is logistics, because we have to end at 5:30 because we all have to be at the school for 6.
right, exactly.
That's the
Okay.
issue.
Yeah, I'll talk to Patty if we need to figure something out. I think we'll be okay, but if we need to schedule another meeting, we can always do that. Okay, we're happy to do that. I think in general, from a public relations perspective, the ISA document has been done for a couple of years now. We're planning to generally follow the same formula, and I think this letter will layer right on top of that and kind of frame everything so that when the second letter comes out, so I don't think it'll be a big lift at the meeting. And then the other, I thank you very much for this. And then the second agenda item was just, we've made a lot of efforts to communicate more effectively about COVID. So we created a link on our website where anyone, it's public, it's open to the public. You can click on and see the number of cases that we have. We met this week, and we're going to actually enhance that information and include the number of staff that are absent and the number of students that are absent, so that people can see that what we're trying to frame for the community is that there's 3 areas that we have to address when we're considering whether or not schools should be open on a daily basis. The first area is the PCR rate, which is the number of people who have tested positive per 100,000 in the community. So I'm sorry, in the county. So it's a county level. It's tricky because the level of concern is about 10.8%, and we're at about 12.1. So some people have been asking me, you know, what does that mean for the schools? And my response has been, well, you have to look at it in combination with two other important factors. One is, has there been transmission in the school? And the other is, do you have adequate staffing to run the school? We have both of those today, so we're still open. Yes, the PCR rate is high and it's really concerning, but the reality is our strategies for mitigation are working. Social distancing, wearing masks, hand sanitizing, contact tracing. We did a really good job last week. We closed school for 5 days. It really did save this week because we were starting to get really worried that we were getting too many cases, and it slowed it way down. Now, it's important to remember that these three factors work together. So if the PCR rate is high, we're certainly concerned about that. And it might make us go remote a little bit quicker if we start to see a few cases in the schools. So we had one at Memorial today. Excuse me, if we get 4 or 5 people or a couple of people even that come back positive related to that case, we may consider a short-term closure or a short-term remote period, but we're only going to do that if we get more cases that come in. We're not going to do it reactively. We're going to do it based on the data. We're going to do it based on whether or not there are additional cases because of the one that we discovered today. I think that one thing that we're going to do to improve our communication is we are going to start sharing with families in the letter that we send home information about the where we're at with spread and staffing, so that people understand that yes, we've had a case, but at this time we have no evidence of community transmission. If we start to see school transmission, then we're certainly going to go remote right away, right? If we start to see multiple cases coming out of one case, we need to deal with that right away. So I wanted to get some feedback from you all as our public relations committee. Are those good things to talk about? Is there anything that we could do to help our community to understand? And certainly Patty's got her hand up. So Larry, if it's okay, I'll turn it over to her for a minute.
I just wanted to ask if you wanted me to share, because today Kristen was actually able to add those 2 additional pieces of data. So let me just show you what we're talking about, because this has been an ongoing project that Kristen, who's my admin assistant, and she's fantastic. She's been working on this every day, and she's doing daily rates. And so these 2 tables that are over here in this document are directly from the State Department of Health and Human Services, and what they use to determine what is community transmission and what is the school impact. And as you see over here, the district-wide absence rate was added today to show that we had 12.9% of all staff, and staff means everybody: teachers, paraprofessionals, custodians, secretaries, nurses, everybody who works in the district, and 6% of students roughly. And so we're using that as an additional data point that we're looking at, so that we know what's our student absentee illness rate. So that's 15%. So that's still low. Staff capacity is a little bit more subjective. Just because you've got 12% out, that could be terrible if it's all of your secretaries and administrative assistants out. How are we going to run anything? If that's all of our nurses, we can't do anything. So that's very subjective. I mean, if it's bus drivers, we could be in trouble. So those are some of the pieces of data that we've got that factor into this table here. And based on the community transmission mode that the state gives us, and that's based on county reporting, and then our active cases by school, and you take the community transmission, which goes across the top of the table here, figure out which category you're in, how it's impacting the school, low, medium, or high, and you figure out where do you land. And lately we've been landing in hybrid, which is what the Department of Education says we are. We've got certain students who are at home in a remote situation, and we've got students who are learning in person in school. So that's hybrid. But again, any little adjustment here, if our absenteeism for students starts to tick up and we have more absent staff for one reason or another, we could start falling into medium, and that could push us, depending on, community transmission going up to substantial, we could be in remote. or we could be advised to be in remote. So that's what's in this table, and this is the current one for today.
And one of the problems that we face is the Department of Health and Human Services is so overloaded with work that they're not updating the number of active cases fast enough. So that's why we had to put the asterisks in front of those numbers. And while Patty was sharing this, I was wondering, would the committee think, should we just present this to the school board so that the community sees it at a school board meeting? We might have more folks observing it and understand it. Would that be helpful?
I think it would be. Tammy,
Yep, I would think so.
how about you, Charlie?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, we'll put that on the agenda for next week, just as part of my superintendent's update. Patty and I will share it and share the information with the board so that the public can see it at a board meeting. It just occurred to me while we were sitting here that I wish I'd recorded her little spiel, because you could almost just play it backward. But that's what we need, is just to kind of explain to people how it works. I think people are wondering when they see that PCR rate in the community of 12.1 or 12.5%, people are wondering, why are we still open? And we're trying to explain to them that that's one factor of 3, right? So it's the staffing, the transmission in the schools, and the PCR rate. Our PCR rate is really concerning. It's definitely, we're watching it. If we start to see evidence of school transmission, we'll go remote and I'll call a meeting of the board, right? But we're not seeing it yet. And so far this week, we've had 1 case, which is we're, halfway through the week. I really think we did a great job last week by being remote. So thank you everyone for all of your efforts it's just so hard because everyone's so frustrated. It really is heartbreaking at my level to experience the amount of frustration that everyone is feeling, but we understand, and we Patty and I don't take it personally. We just keep going and try to keep everyone safe and keep the kids learning. We understand that, this will end someday. That's where we're at. We got our eye on the future. All
We
right.
have to.
Yes, we do. So that's all I had for tonight, guys. I just wanted to check in with y'all and fill you in.
We had number 2 here, review of the annual report.
That was what we talked about before, that we're gonna develop that letter for the annual report, Larry.
Okay, good.
I did them backwards. I'm sorry.
All right, no problem. Charlie, you have anything you want to add?
I wanted to ask something, but I don't know if it's appropriate.
Go ahead.
Are we testing the kids when they go into school with a thermometer?
Yes, we are every day.
How
Every
did they
student.
get by? How did they get by that person if that person was ill?
Because sometimes people are symptomatic or asymptomatic. If they're symptomatic, they may not have a fever. They might have a sneeze or a cough and you don't see it. And part of why we've had such good luck so far is that they are catching a lot of kids that come in with some symptoms and sending them home right away. We just, this one, just the parent sent them, and what happened. It's really hard.
They should be spanked for it.
I agree.
Prosecuted.
I'm assuming you're talking about the parent, Charlie, but we'll leave that there.
Other than that, I'm good.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay, thank you. Tammy, you have anything you want to add?
Well, I think for our next meeting, by our next meeting, we should have a budget and a plan for the budget. So I think we need to address some of our messaging around the impact on education of there's a lot of concern about specifically at least 2 things: the staff reductions and the Wednesday early release, and what the impact will be of those on education. So I think we need to start putting some messages out there once the budget has been, approved, to help people feel more comfortable about the impact, or hopefully there won't be a negative impact. We need to let people know that as much as we can. There's a lot
How
of
about if I have you working with Tom to get some of that stuff out on Facebook, because I know that gets response.
Yeah.
And I like it coming from you, Tammy, because I get a lot of response back. I'm with the older community, and they like the Facebook, and they like your responses. And Tom is the official one. You're the one that kind of explains it to them. And they keep calling me up saying that you're doing such a great job. Keep her at it. And I'm complimenting you now. Thank you for all that.
Sure.
So-
Okay. That's good to hear. I'm
Well,
glad.
I'll let you know that all that stuff that you've been doing is not being wasted.
Yeah.
And I have been here.
No.
And it's from the older group that I'm getting that, not from the younger ones. So that's
Okay.
good for you to know.
Do they express similar concerns?
Yes,
As-
they do. They're just
We're-
kind of curious what's really happening. And I guess the way you've been wording it, I don't use Facebook. So I just get from what everybody says. And they like your explanations. Tom gives them the idea, and I guess you kind of explain it. I'm going to have to look in there one of these days and find out what's going on.
Okay, well, certainly Facebook is one of the vehicles.
Larry, I don't go on Facebook that much, but when I do, I read her stuff and she does explain it quite well.
Yes, she does.
Does a
Thank
good
you.
job.
Yeah, and it really, I really think that Tammy and I worked really hard when the seminary was being discussed. That was a really important part, and I do think, Tammy, that I thank you for bringing that up, Tammy. I think that we do need to develop a multimodal approach to the budget, and hopefully, if we have a teacher's contract, that we can talk about those things as well. So we're going to have the early release days, we're going to have the budget, we're going to have the teacher's contract, and Patty and I will start working on some preliminary ideas to run by you. And Tammy, we can just, if it's okay with Larry and Charles, we'll start by sending it to you, and then we'll rough it out. And if we can get some things out there ahead of the game, I think we should hit it before the holidays, because people
I
are going
think
to
so, too.
be meeting and getting together over the holidays and talking, right?
Yep.
So if we can get some messaging out before that, it might be a good idea. Do you agree?
I think the sooner the better, because I'm seeing a lot of concern, being expressed.
Yep. All right, we'll get on it.
Okay. I have nothing else. Does anybody else have anything else to bring up?
Nope.
Good for me.
If nobody has anything, as the chairman of this, I adjourn the meeting.